Welcome to the Sanity Project Podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project Podcast. You're here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. Our guest today is Lauri Smith. Lauri Smith has written a book called Your Voice Matters, a guide to speaking soulfully when it counts. It's available at Amazon. And Lauri Smith is an intuitive public speaker and leadership coach and the author of The Voice Matters. As a caring visionary of Voice Matters, she helps visionaries on a soul-driven mission to stand in their power, speak their truth, and lead. Her mission is to call forth more open-hearted leaders so they can do their part to change the world with authenticity, creativity, and courage. She envisions a world in which everyone shares the vibration of their soul's purpose through their voices, and together we reach global harmony. Welcome to the show, Lauri Smith.
Thank you so much for having me, Joanne. It's great to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you because I always like people who talk about the voice. I've had a few speakers who talk about the voice. One was talking about her voice had locked up on stage, and she, used that data to create a piece to talk about. And it's interesting what happens to us and how we do get overwhelmed when we're up in front of the room. So how did you get here? How did you get to talk about voice?
Great question. It all started when I was a young child. I loved stories. I loved to play make-believe, and I was playing with some friends. We were making up stories, and they, of course, being 7 years old, just like me, got bored and wanted to go to the pool. And I said, okay, great. I'm going to finish the story. I'll meet you there later. And my mother found me at that point with my hair curled up in little pin curls like Cindy Brady from the Brady Bunch. And she immediately searched and found an acting class. And I like to say now that theater was actually my first spiritual zone. Even though I didn't know what that was at the time, it was the first place in the world that I was really able to be fully myself. And theater has a light side and a dark side, just like just about everything. In the light side of theater, there are a group of highly creative people who know how to be deeply present with each other in the way that most of the world doesn't. And fast forward about 20 years to when I was working as an executive assistant in the Silicon Valley by day and doing theater at night. I was working way too much. And every time a show that I was in ended, I would go through sort of a post-so depression or sadness when I went back to work. And I remember at one point, somebody asked me to fax something, which being an executive assistant was, of course, my job. And this little voice inside said, don't you know I'm meant for greater things? And I was.
Yes.
And I was the one who was keeping myself in that job. And I had been kind of getting this call to go toward a more aligned life, and resisting it, as we all often do. So this was sort of pulling me, and I was resisting and sticking with that day job and that sort of split-focused life. And around that time, there was an exercise in my favorite acting class with my favorite acting instructor. I kind of had a secret love-hate relationship with being seen. And during this acting exercise, instead of the focus being split between everyone's focus was on me. It was my exercise. I was the only one up on stage. And I kept in between these little sections of the exercise, pulling myself back together and putting on those I'm fine masks.
Oh, yes.
And the energetic. Yeah, we've all done it. And he paused the exercise, as he did so many times during the years I was with him, and said, please stop doing whatever that thing is that you're doing in between. Just be where you are. And I responded, I'm not that comfortable having everyone's eyes on me. And he kind of smiled and said, then you've chosen a strange set of careers for yourself. Part of you wants this. And I knew he was right. Part of me did want it. Part of me knew I was meant to be seen. And I deeply trusted him. So I took a leap and I continued. And I felt a lifetime of layers of protection melting away as the exercise continued. And when I looked around the room, I could see and feel what kind of a day everyone had been having. And it was my first moment of oneness in my life that lasted beyond the acting. So I left and I went to graduate school. And then, sure enough, another moment of being seen that involved the voice in an even more vulnerable way came up. I was playing Hecate, a goddess character in Macbeth that actually is often cut from the play. And in our production, I was wearing a very extravagant mask, extravagant, deep. And it was such a work of art itself that we didn't get it until a few days before the show was supposed to open. And you're really actually supposed to have much more time to bond and learn how to move, and more importantly, speak in the character mask. And we didn't have that kind of time. We were in a tech rehearsal with probably 40 or 50 people watching. And the director said, you can just move so they can light you. Don't feel like you need to speak. And I felt like I can either find this character's voice now with 40 people watching, or I can wait until there are 200 people here on opening night. So again, I took a courageous leap. And I started with, I'm just going to inhale, and then I'm going to make slow sounds and sort of see what of the voice I can find. And my first word was have, and it came out something like have. Oh. And I continued the scene in this sort of slow motion, vulnerable, primal sound until by the end, I basically was ready to open the play. I had her voice, I had her movement. And I realize when I look back on that, that it was almost as if I was rediscovering the ability to speak and then channeling that into this goddess character. Mm-hmm. And I now know that I was also learning parts of how we can speak authentically and powerfully, that there is in each of us a primal force that when we learn how to access it or re-access it, has us come to life in a vibrant way from head to toe. And when that primal force meets our purpose in the world, we become magnetic, and our innate presence or our innate charisma is unleashed from that force getting connected to our purpose. And after I left graduate school, I thought I would be a theater teacher, and I was part-time for a bit. And I also had a theater student come up to me in a community college. She was about my age at the time, early 30s. And she said, I think you're a coach. And I didn't actually know what coaching was at the time, but I could read from her energy that she wasn't talking about soccer.
Right.
It was one of those moments where her face almost looked like it was in a fun mirror as she was standing there talking to me, and time was slowing down behind her. So I listened, and I signed up for my first coaching class probably within 2 weeks. And I knew when I stepped into that coaching class within 15 minutes this is the final piece of whatever I'm here to create. Even though I could not have told you with any sort of coherence or left-brain intelligence what that meant at the time, it was all an intuitive knowing of feeling like I was coming home and energetically almost feeling like the kaleidoscope is coming into focus. And of course, now I blend leadership training with coaching and all of those beautiful nuggets of the lighter side of theater to help my visionary clients find their authentic voice and connect their primal aliveness with their purpose so that they can do their work in the world that they're here to do.
So you closed a circle, so to speak.
Yeah. That's energetically kind of the feeling that I remember having when I was sitting in that room of knowing.
Well, you were lucky. I say that because I know that there are people who speak, who coach, who do all sorts of things, but don't feel as though they've found their calling, as you have. And I say you're lucky because once you know where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing, you do it. Open-hearted, as you say here, open-hearted leaders, but you do it easily and effortlessly. And that's the key. And to be able to do that at such a young age, I know people go, such a young age, that's not young. Wait until you grow up, people. You'll figure it out. That is young. You're lucky. So how do you deal with visionaries getting overwhelmed? I don't know what you mean by visionaries, and I don't know what you mean by overwhelmed. So why don't you share with the audience what visionaries or what type of visionaries you're talking about?
Yeah. When I say visionary, I often use the word visionary because I myself was a reluctant leader for a lot of my life. So I was looking for a word that resonated for me, that felt like it was the people that I love working with. And in fact, they are this new generation of open-hearted leaders rather than a command or dictatorial leader. And sometimes the reluctance to claiming the word leader has to do with not wanting to be what they grew up on.
Right.
So when I say visionary, it's someone who has a vision for something that will make the world a better place or their world a better place. And they're feeling called to speak, to share that vision. And a lot of my clients would not speak publicly if it weren't for feeling that tug, feeling that call that there's something that they need to start to speak or speak up about more in order to help improve things. And the overwhelm is part of why they wouldn't go step up onto the stage or lead from the front, even if it's, they're not on a stage, but they're leading large meetings regularly. They get overwhelmed by their own physical sensations. They get overwhelmed by energy in the room, some of which may be coming from them, and a lot of which is actually not even coming from them. It's coming from the crowd.
Yeah, the audience.
The audience. It's a lot of stuff to deal with. A lot of my clients are empaths or highly sensitive people. And most of my clients, until we meet, are thinking that they're the only one whose heart starts to race faster or has sweat running down their back or feels this pulsing energy. And they think it's all them, and they think they're not supposed to be experiencing those things. And what I believe is that the body, in some part of what's going on in the body, is the body's wisdom. It's the body's attempt to fuel the person for a moment that really matters. And then there might be some fight or flight stuff going on, which if they learn how to become connected to an intention for what they want to have happen, then their body will start to understand, oh, this isn't a fight or flight moment. That audience is not the same thing as a bear. And the fight or flight will go away, and then the body's true wisdom can kick in. And then that energy coming from the crowd is when we learn to harness it rather than fight it or resist it or try to shut it down. That's when our own unique brand of charisma gets unleashed instead of suppressed.
Yes, that's really important to have the audience on your side. They're not your enemy. Well, some of them may be, but by and large, they're there to hear you, listen to you, and I was going to say learn, but not necessarily, but they're willing to hear you. And then once you set up that screen where they're your enemy, or you're afraid of them on some level, it's really difficult to break that barrier because you have to have more than one of you in the front. You have to have duality there in order to make it one. For a while, you have to have duality, and that's a distraction from what you're trying to do.
Yes. And if we go into a situation thinking of them as other, thinking of them as antagonistic, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that we as the speaker are actually the one creating for the most part.
Right.
Because we're looking for signs of it going wrong rather than setting an intention and looking for signs of that intention coming to life right before our eyes and manifesting more of that.
I found that in my speaking, I'm always more comfortable with obviously, Joanne, I'm more comfortable with the crowd that is smaller and that I know some of the audience because I feel as though I can, connect with those people and relax quicker.
Yeah.
When I'm with,
Yeah, so intuitive. I often ask my clients to connect first with the kindred spirits in the room. And that might mean someone you already knew before you came there. And it might mean there's a set of eyes that is calling to you for some reason. Well, instead of looking at the person that you think might not agree with you first or be resistant first, why not look at that kindred set of eyes? We're both on Zoom and I'm seeing your eyes in the little screenshot that's there. Such a kind set of eyes. Why not look at those eyes first and create a connection and calm ourselves down and then create something that other people want to lean into and be a part of?
Yeah, I always had, when I did my workshops, private workshops kind of thing, sort of private, I would have people that I know sit in front so that I could focus on them. And then I would spread them out throughout the audience so that I could focus on a larger part of the crowd because, so I'd have somebody that I knew that I could feel safe with because it's a very terrifying, my speaking, it's terrifying to stand up in front of a strange group of people. And yet, if it's a larger group, there's this thing, if it's a small group and it's one floor and you're all together kind of thing, that's one thing. But if it's a huge audience and you're on the stage, that's safer to me because you've got that barrier of the I don't know what you call it, but you've got the barrier of the stage plus this walking space, etc. But it's really strange, all of these. And I used to act as well, so that was different. But
and then the trick is, or one of the things that I want for these visionaries is whether it's an intimate small group or a football stadium, to actually create intimacy with the crowd, to be with them, to be connected with them, to be having a conversation, even if their half is mostly in laughter and tears coming back at you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people don't realize it. And then they have a lot of speaking teachers or whatever you want to call them, who will teach you how to speak. It's kind of like, okay, I'm afraid of you, but you're going to teach me how to speak. Okay. And then, well, there are several of them floating around.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And, you get yelled at and stuff. It's like, oh, do it again. What do you want me to do again? That's the key here. What do you want me to do again? You want me to be me again? And that's not right, because it's not, you haven't found who I am yet by my speaking. So how can you ask me to find myself again? Very odd little stuff going on.
Yeah. And I, when I was 19 years old, studied theater, and I studied it again when I was in my 30s. There was sort of an old school voice teacher and a new school voice teacher. And I was fortunate. When I went back to graduate school, they hired someone who was more of this new school, where it was about the old school had been that there was a good sound and a bad sound. And the good sound was actually manufactured. It's not a dialect that exists anywhere in the United States. It's what they used to do in broadcasting and in those like 1930s and 40s movies. And I had never liked that. I had resisted it a lot. I had done it to get A's in class. And the breath part saved me when I lost my voice once when I was playing Lysistrata in Lysistrata. So I knew there was something to it, but it was like I was hungry to meet this new wave of voice teacher. And then I stumbled right into one. And the new wave is about removing the resistance to a person having access to kind of an infinite number of sounds, that they could play any character with any dialect, any vocal mannerism, and their instrument is ready, able, and willing to support that. It's another, you mentioned I was lucky to stumble into things as early as I did. That's another one where I was lucky, because it was like I was following some of the things that didn't work for me, that I was resistant against, were actually whispers from the universe, kind of going, if there's something that you really don't like about that, maybe you're supposed to be one of the people who helps change it. And I am not the only voice instructor, technically, who is part of this new wave. And that resistance to, I don't want to go see Shakespeare where everybody sounds like a king.
Right.
That's not how it's supposed to work. Some of them are supposed to, they're all supposed to have unique and different characters, and they all sort of sound like this. And I never could have been a speaking instructor using the old school voice of there's only one good way to sound. I have a deep held belief that if there's 7.8 billion people on the planet, there's 7.8 billion different types of charisma, and no one person is like another. So my work is all about removing what the world has done to people to have them suppress their innate radiance. Let's get all that other stuff out of the way so that your innate radiance can shine, supported by how we breathe when we're speaking.
Yes, if people knew it was only that simple, haha.
I know. Yeah, it's sort of like, if you watch Steph Curry shoot a three-pointer, it's only that simple. I mean, look at how beautiful his shot looks.
Yes.
And, he's put in well over 10,000 hours making that shot as beautiful as it is. The nice thing for us as speakers is we don't have to go to the gym to practice. We can be practicing rediscovering our perfect 3-point speaking shot anytime we open our mouths. So it's a little easier than Steph Curry has it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of that 10,000. They always say it takes 10,000 hours to learn what you want to teach. I'm editing there, but it's pretty much true.
Yeah.
So what would you say to one of the listeners, any of the listeners right now, who I'm always telling, please listen to the podcast again, and take a yellow pad and a pen and take notes, because you will forget 99% of what Lauri is telling us. So just do that. What would you tell people who want to speak, who are afraid, number one, to get in front of the room, who are invited to do a TED Talk? I can't even say those two words together, TED Talk, who are invited to make a statement to somebody. What would you tell them to do as basic exercises, let's say?
I would start with asking them to do three things as they're preparing their talk and as they're delivering it, which are intend, align, and invite. Intend is setting the intention for the vibe you want to create in the room, either emotionally or energetically. Align is aligning your body, your breath, and your energy with your highest, most expressive self. And then inviting is inviting the audience moment by moment, word by word, breath by breath, to join you in that intention that you set, including listening to their nonverbal half of the conversation as you speak. The other nugget of wisdom that I would have is to start to create rituals for before and after. In theater, we would probably call this a warm-up, and I like the word ritual better because it begins before just laying down and doing a physical warm-up like an actor would. It might, for the sensitive empaths among us, it might have to do with what do you do the day before or the week before to prepare yourself and to treat your system with love. And then what do you do the day or the 2 days or the week after to recover from this heightened event? That might include some things that an actor would do in a warm-up. For some people, it might include going jogging the morning of, because they have so much energy, they sort of need to jog to give all of that energy somewhere to go. And for others, it might include laying down and watching Netflix the night before with some candles or after to recover.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the recovering, I think. For me, I would say right now, it's the recovering, because you need to recover. Number one, you need to go to the office and, get that fax out and whatever it may be. But I found that recovering was an issue for me because I would rather be in the world of theater at the time, more in the world of theater than in the other reality. Mm-hmm. And that other reality was like a letdown, just like a huge letdown.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not in the theater. I'm not performing. What is going on? Oh, okay. Oh, then you just go down. I did. And that's sad because you're wasting a lot of energy. And if you learn something during this time, would be how to recover. So anyway, as a byproduct of this conversation, I'm going to ask you briefly, what do you think of TED Talks or TED times 2 or whatever those things are?
I love watching really great ones.
Yes.
So I usually wait because there's so many. I tend to wait until someone has forwarded it to me. Have you seen this one lately? Their tagline is an idea worth spreading.
Right.
Or ideas worth spreading. And I feel like the ones that are the most worth spreading are coming from people who are not just conveying an idea from their mind to your mind, but it's more from heart to heart or soul to soul. So I love the ones where the ideas are amazing and the delivery is also coming from someone who's vibrant and alive from head to toe, or on a path to that. Jill Bolte Taylor's Stroke of Insight is one of my favorites because she looks vibrant and alive from head to toe, and she's also delivering ideas that are complex and simple and beautiful and amazing at the same time.
Well, that's good to know. I hope our audience follows up on that. Jill Bolte Taylor, Bolte, B-O-L-T-E, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay. And I appreciate you being here today because this has been insightful, besides you being a voice coach for Visionaries. I'm editing. And because I've been listening to your voice and how specific you are, and you certainly hit all your consonants, that's for sure, which I just messed up. And I don't even know if people know what a consonant is, but check Google or your, library or someplace to tell you. But Lauri Smith does it well. Mm-hmm. And I want to thank you for being here today, and stay on the line and we'll take care, hopefully, and we'll talk for a minute or two. Thank you, Lauri Smith, for being here today. It's been a great talk and informative. I will say extremely informative. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joanne. I've loved our conversation.
Myself as well.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project Podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.